Vision. So that pretty much describes the future for your brand. It's what your kind of like long-term goal is. And this might not even just be for your brand, but just for yourself, because you are your brand, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I know last week, it was last week, we talked about this a bit, that you also have your LLC, the business that you've created too.
Yeah.
So it might be
a common. Hear back on the trademark as well. Trademark.
Okay. Nice. So it's a combination of both. For you, it would probably be a combination of both your business and yourself and as an independent brand. So this is like, you can think lofty with this. You could think outside as big as possible if you had no limits with everything. And then the mission is kind of just the steps to get there. So if that vision is like 10 years out, the mission is what you're going to start doing now, next year. Yeah. And then the values are just things that you care about. And so a lot of those questions we're getting into, your past and your personal way of thinking to kind of start to think of some values there. And so we'll probably spend more time with the questions too, to start pulling out some of those. But I went through initially and just grabbed some paragraphs of stuff that you had mentioned. It kind of started to bucket it as a vision, the mission, the values, and just things that I was seeing that you had mentioned. Actually, I forgot one more. So, yeah, I got a few questions about that to kind of get clear on that, because I think that there's some really good values that I'm assuming are part of you being a goddess. And I'm really curious about those, because I think that could be kind of the essence of your branding, but that's an assumption, but we'll see. But yeah, so I started to put this together, basically just organizing it a bit. And some of the things that I saw that I thought were kind of like lofty, big goals, I included here. So you can kind of look through that right now.
Yeah.
And then there was one section in your questions that you kind of listed a few different steps, and you actually kind of put that as your vision of like where you want to take things, short term, long term. But I thought those were very clear steps, which I think is good.
Yeah, that's also like the most exciting part for me, to like think in terms of like what are the actual steps to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can get like really lost in my to-do list. It's like really easy for me to like write a massive to-do list, but then get completely overwhelmed by it. And then when somebody asks you, what are you about, not know how to answer it, So I believe that this vision and mission work is really good. I do know that I need a really tangible plan for the next 12 months, so that's why it was good to kind of put that in the midterm, short-term, midterm, like long-term thing, try and like make it a bit more like concrete for myself to kind of like see how the vision and mission and the steps, like the actual action steps, come together.
Yeah, because you got a lot of ideas here. Like for the stuff that I put in here for mission, like there's a lot of different things that you would want to do. And so then it just becomes prioritizing. So like looking at these and being like, what's something that you're going to get up and do in that next 12 months versus like, maybe you'll revisit this a year from now and you see that's still on there on the list, and you go back to doing that, like receiving grants. And we also talked about this too, like touring abroad. Like you kind of want to get that done within 2 years. That's not something you're going to do this year. It's be something next year.
Right.
So kind of preparing for that.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just going through this vision stuff, and I'm curious to you if there's like one single thing that you would describe, like if somebody just off the rip asked you, what's the first thing that you deep down in your heart is like, this is a vision for myself? Because there's a lot of different ideas in here, and I'm trying to see if there's anything that jumps out. And it could be multiple parts of it, but I'm curious if there's one that kind of stands out more than anything is like the single vision for yourself.
People ask me what my vision for Hezza Fezza is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have like this. Basically, I want to be able to be clocked into Hezza Fezza all the time. You know, I want to be able to do it full time. But I don't know if that's a vision statement. That's like more of a mission statement. The vision and the feeling is to really kind of, yeah, I believe that we're in this a really critical moment of change in this world, where we've been going more and more towards globalization, but a lot has been like lost in this wave of globalization, and everything becoming very homogenized, and everybody sounding like each other too, like in sounding and looking like each other in pop culture too. And so I want to be a unique being and encourage others to be a unique being, but do that in a way that is not overpowering anybody else, and that also honors and respects nature and rediscovers our past and connects it with really being in the moment now.
Gotcha.
When I was reading through the questions you answered, one thing that kept popping out to me that I think could be really good and would just like simplifies the vision statement is just, seems like the big thing for you was wanting to drive connection between people, other people, and like connection with yourself. And so like that's something that really resonated with me, because with art, I think that's one of the biggest things people can get out of it is the ability to connect, which is why like one reason I started doing this was so artists can create the work they want that then helps people connect with each other, so artists can be empowered to do that. I remember I was reading an interview from someone, and they mentioned that with their work, their biggest goal, one is they want to be like the thing people use to kill time, but other than that, they
want to be something that people kill time with.
Yeah, like if you have downtime, they want you to pick up their stuff and consume it. But then the other thing was they want to be so popular that people have a connection to it. So if a kid goes to a new school and they don't know anyone, they can make friends easily because all the other kids have like read their work. So it just makes an easy way for people to connect.
Yeah. So like they both know the same artist and they can connect about that.
Right. Yeah. So it drives like a commonality between people.
I like that. I definitely and you know, like how do we authentically connect online and on social media, you know, without driving ourselves crazy and being like an unhealthy thing for us, where we're not in our body anymore, you know, we're like literally like this, relating to like this flat machine versus a real person more often than not. The idea to connect everybody, I think there's like the possible trap in that is where I could see, you know, for example, not that I'm like a huge hater of Nike per se. I'm gonna bring it as an example. Like I'm sure Nike would say we want to connect people, and we like everyone can talk about their Jordans or their Nikes or their you know, whatever it is, you know, that they got going on like across the globe, from China to South Africa to Russia, you know. At the same time, what could we potentially be losing through there being like this blanket that's happening?